What's up, you guys? Welcome to this week's Manga Sutra manga review, and in this week's video we're going to be doing something different from the rest of the series. We're going to be talking about a web novel instead of a manga. Now, a couple of weeks ago I received a link on my Facebook page's inbox to read Creative Attribute. Now, after reading the web novel, I decided that I wanted to do a review on it on the Manga Sutra. Now, as you guys know, the Manga Sutra is a series on my YouTube channel that I use to talk about manga that I like, as well as manga that I think aren't receiving attention from bigger channels. And I want the Manga Sutra series to definitely be a place for new manga creators, web comic creators, or web novel creators to get their stuff out there to an audience. So if you have something that you're working on, don't be afraid to message me on my Facebook page, and I will read and I will do a fair, impartial review. So getting into Creative Attribute. Creative Attribute takes place in the not-so-distant technologically advanced future, and we revolve around four main characters: Alana, Vanessa, Jordan, and Dante. Now, my favorites are Dante and Vanessa, but don't tell anyone I said that. Now, they're all enrolled in this newly established academy that is different from other academies and schools in the sense that it grades its students on three criteria, which is academics, athletics, and attribute. Now, all of the new students were confused on the attribute aspect until the principal explained to them that due to the popularity of esports and gaming in the Creative Attribute universe, schools want to integrate gaming into the school curriculum, and Attribute was formed. Now, Attribute is an MMORPG, as the principal described it, and the students are required to wear headsets called Flux Gear, which configurates and creates in-game avatars and characters for the players based on their academic history and medical history, turning their strengths and weaknesses into stats for the characters in the game. Now, I was definitely excited about that part of it. Also, the students are required to group up into groups of four, and they cannot change these groups for an entire school year. Now, our main characters have been grouped up by sheer circumstance. Now, as for the rest of the chapter is really short. It just basically gives you a rundown on the main characters' backgrounds, gives you a rundown on Attribute and the school itself, and they basically log into the Attribute interface for the first time and go on a group quest and fight their first boss. Now, I want to get into the pros and cons of Creative Attribute that I like and I dislike. And there's not too many things I dislike about Creative Attribute, so let's just get into the things I like. For starters, maybe it's because it's my first web novel, but one thing I like about it is that with each and every page, there's audio, there's sound, like there's roosters crowing, there's music playing, or as when our main characters are first logging into the Attribute interface, we get like a little robotic voice doing the exact same thing. We also get sound effects for their attacks and everything, and I just love it. I feel like so much effort and care was taken into that, and I definitely appreciate the art style that we get within the few pictures and panels that we see, because it definitely adds to the setting and the environment, and it gets me immersed and invested in the characters. And another thing I like about it is the diversity of the characters, of our main characters. We have these different backgrounds for them and these different personalities as well. But one thing I dislike about it, just the one thing I dislike about it, is just the dialogue. I feel like it tries so hard in some sense, and I see this when we have Dante first arriving on campus. He sees three girls and he calls them fine pieces of meat or fine slabs of meat. Now, whether this is just really corny writing, or as Dante said, his mom was just really trolling him and telling him that those pickup lines worked, which I still think is really corny writing, is beyond me. We also have the principal, when he's describing Attribute, he says, as we nerds like to call it, MMORPGs. Now, I just feel it's just so heavy-handed. It's just like slapping you in the face with this. And when Dante's first logging into the Attribute interface, he talks about how he's gonna be a sweaty tryhard, and I was just cringing so badly, like, oh, Dante, no, not you. Not you. Like, I've invested so much time in you, and it's only been like several pages. Like, I've already assigned him and Vanessa my favorite characters, but his dialogue is not helping him any further in this series so far. But I definitely like his personality. He's quirky and he's goofy, and in many ways, he's just like any average person in that sense. But God, that dialogue, that like slabs of meat, I will never get over that. I won't. I won't. But this is the first chapter, and I'm being critical of the dialogue because I know what it's like. I know what it's like to write your own dialogue for your own little novel or comic or book or so on, because I have a little short book that I have been writing in the past, and the dialogue, I wouldn't say it's atrocious, but it's on the level of this. So I know what it feels like to write your own dialogue, and I'm not bashing it, but it can improve, especially considering this is the first chapter. It can improve going forward, and I would really like to see that with this web novel series. Now, a plus going forward with it is it definitely managed to hook me on the concept. It definitely got me interested in the characters, and I would like to see it going forward, because I'm one of those people that if I can get invested in the first episode or the first chapter or first few minutes of a show or so on like that, then I am a ride or die. I'm basically going to follow the rest of the series through and through until something just happens that makes me just want to drop it. I would definitely like to see more of Creative Attribute going forward. I can't wait for the next chapter that is going to be coming out this April, so that's definitely something to look forward to. Another plus that it has going for it is outside of the atrocious dialogue, like outside of it. Like, what I mean by outside of it is we have the characters interacting outside of the MMORPG attribute and inside the MMORPG attribute. Now, inside the MMORPG attribute, I'm much more at home with this. Like, especially when they use like MMO terminology and slang and so on and so forth, like grinding and all this stuff, and how they communicate with each other when they're coordinating attacks and strategies and quests. It makes me feel at home because I've been playing MMORPGs when I was a teenager, and I still do to some extent now. So it's not something that's foreign to me. It makes me feel it's relatable to me. So that's what I love about it. But outside of the MMORPG, like, God, that dialogue is atrocious. It needs work. And I'm scared to actually critique on that too, because, you know, when they sent me the link, they was really grateful and appreciative of me reading it and reviewing it and doing a video on it. And, you know, when somebody's that nice and polite, it's kind of like hard to be like really harsh about any negative aspects of anything. But you gotta be brutally honest to some extent. You gotta be truthful about how you feel. I feel the dialogue is the only thing that's holding it back. The dialogue is the only thing that could really use some work. I feel like the audio and the sounds for the pages is beautiful. The artwork is amazing, and I definitely feel like the concept is something that is amazing as well, because it reminds me of Sword Art Online, and I feel like Sword Art Online deteriorated as the seasons went by, because it just kind of got more and more diluted. I mean, I felt like it had a lot of weight and intensity in the first season. I felt like it should have ended really after the first season. I really didn't feel like we needed to make seasons 2, 3, 4 out of this. And at some point, I don't even know if it's Sword Art Online anymore now. But I have hopes in Creative Attribute. I definitely want to see them, and I definitely want to see conflict between the 4 main characters. I also feel like there is going to be conflict in the future. Otherwise, you would not have told us that you cannot switch out of these groups or teams until one whole school year is passed. So there has to be some type of conflict, I feel, that is going to occur between the 4 main characters, and that type of and that rule is going to be brought up again in the future. But this is VM. I really like it. The link is going to be below for you to read the first chapter, and I would suggest donating towards it. It is a pretty good series, and I feel like it could definitely use some work, but it has a beautiful concept, and I really want to see how well it's going to be executed.